Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a crime film from Norway, Norwegian language English subs, released in the year 2010, directed by Erik Skolberg, and this film is called Knockers. So Knockers is a bit about a real story. It is the most notorious bank heist in Norwegian history. You've got the Knockers building that is harbouring a lot of money, and on this particular day 11 masked men had stormed the Knockers building intending to steal 200 million kroner. So their plan backfires, and what happens from that point on is a shootout with the police and basically a comedy of errors. The police are very incompetent, the plan of the robbers doesn't go well, and mixing that both together, there's a lot of desperation, and it actually resulted in a police officer losing his life. So it is basically following this guy leading up to that tragic event, and what transpires and how it unfolds is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Knockers. As I said, this is based on a true story. Knockers, the Knockers heist, which is such a notorious and a very important heist in Norwegian history, and Norwegians have learnt a lot from this tragic day. Now personally, I had heard nothing about Knockers, so coming into it, it was just a very new experience for me. But a lot of Norwegians, a lot of Scandinavians are going to get a lot more out of this film, and it's going to hit them a lot harder, because if you're actually there in the country when these tragic events happen, then it actually hits you a lot harder. With me, with the Port Arthur massacre in the 90s, where Martin Bryant killed 32 people. A lot of other people from other countries hear about it, but if you're not actually in that country at the time of it happening, it just doesn't hit you as hard. So for me, coming into Knockers, not knowing about the film, when I actually saw what happened, I wasn't hit as hard as, say, a Norwegian would if they were living there at the time. But I would still say that Knockers is still a very, very haunting and very powerful experience. Now, I was very concerned about Knockers being a very entertaining film, based on true events, but basically what they're going to do is put the movie aspect ahead of the source material. So a lot of American films do that. They'll say based on a true story, but it actually feels like you're watching a movie. It feels like it's not really respecting the true story aspect. It's more worried about selling the film with explosions, with gunfire, and all these, stylized violence and, creative liberties that take part in it. So it feels like the true story is there to sell the film, but what they're going to do is hit you with a really entertaining film. So it doesn't really feel like a realistic portrayal. But in Knockers, I was really happy to see that Erik Skolberg actually takes the time and effort to pay respect to everything that had happened on this particular day. So coming into Knockers, you're not going to get a very entertaining film. There's no massive explosions. There are shootouts, but they're done in a very realistic fashion. So there's no entertainment in the movie. It's not a movie that is trying to get enjoyment from the viewer. It's actually a movie that actually feels like it's reenacting a dreadful day. So you actually feel really bad while you're watching it. You actually feel very, very uncomfortable, because it feels like you're a fly on the wall. It actually feels like you're there on that particular day. You were actually beside these police officers who were shooting up against the robbers. You actually felt like you were a civilian caught in the crossfire, and you could feel the panic, you could feel the horror, but there was no soundtrack, there was no cues for, feeling certain emotions. It actually felt like you were there on the day. It doesn't feel like it's glamorizing anything. There is not a pretty film to watch. The cinematography is done very well, as it's very matter of fact. It is sort of shaky cam, but it's not done in a very excessive way. But as I said, that realism, it really seeps through the screen, and I thought for a movie depicting this sort of source material, and especially because a man lost his life, this was the most respectful way to do it. It wasn't glamorizing anything. Right at the end of the film, extremely hard-hitting, but I thought once again, it paid respect to the guy who lost his life. At no stage does it ever feel like it's trying to make money off this horrible event. It just feels like this director is trying to show you a slice of Norwegian history. And the most disturbing part of this film is that it doesn't paint anyone as a good guy. It actually shows you the incompetence of the whole situation. And that if the police had more competence, if the robbers had more competence, this could have resulted in a much better outcome. But for the fact that the police were bumbling idiots, basically didn't know what they were doing, and there was, I'm not going to give anything away, but there were just many situations where the police really should have handled it better. And then you've got the robbers. They had this extravagant plan that they were going to steal 200 million kroner. Everyone was going to know about them. They felt really well prepared, but remarkably, they weren't prepared very well. Their plan seemed very, stupid. It wasn't much intelligence put into it at all. And then when they sense that the police are coming, you sense that there's a lot of panic, and you know that this is not going to have a very good outcome. And in fact, it was a miracle that more than one person, that only one person lost their life. It could have been a lot of people, because it felt like no one was in charge of the situation. No one knew exactly what they were doing or how to handle this horrible event. And I thought the movie it showed that in the most respectful manner. I thought it was more of a reenactment than it was based on a true story. It actually felt like this was the most realistic portrayal of a true story that you will come across. So it is a heist film, but be very careful, because it's not your typical heist film. The dialogue was very natural. It actually felt like it was improvised. It felt like the people working in Nokkus were actually workers in that company. It actually felt like these police officers were police, and it actually felt like the robbers were robbers. And it didn't really symbolise the robbers as bad guys, these evil people. It actually felt like everyday people who were going through this plan to get rich quickly. And so it puts away all stereotypes for the sake of being respectful to the source material. And for that, I'm not going to say I enjoyed it, but I really appreciated this film for what it was. Just an extremely realistic portrayal. It is very uncomfortable to watch. It is extremely haunting. I thought the end of the movie was just one of the most hard-hitting experiences I've had, but it was done in such a subtle way. So there is so much emotion that is splashed through the screen that translates through to the viewer, but it's done without really taking creative liberties, without trying to make a quick buck off the source material. I thought Erik Skjoldberg has done this in a very good way, and it was just the most respectful way. So if you're a fan of heist films, I would be very careful coming into this. A lot of people will say this is very boring, but I just love the way that it didn't follow a plot. It didn't follow, it didn't have twists and turns. It didn't have a sort of whodunit aspect to it. It was just basically setting itself on this particular day, and it was just transpiring. And what happened is shown to you, but it's shown in a very non-sort of glamorous way. So I thought this is the best way to do it, and as a result of that, I'm going to give Nokkus 4 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.